Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. If you guys are listening on Wandering Trader, I'm going to start uploading these videos here on this channel as well, so you guys can talk a little bit more about finance and economics and things to be able to get you guys acquainted with what's going on in the world. One big piece of news this week is we launched a new platform. It's called Quant Tower FT. If you guys are futures traders or want to get into trading, it's completely free. Just go to a platform with an A at the end. Platform A, speedup.com. Hopefully they'll put the link here on the bottom, and you'll be able to just register and download it and everything so you guys can play with it. So in the futures market, you normally have to pay for a platform, and now it can be completely free for you guys. Overall, for this week, we had a situation where big news on Friday with Trump catching the COVID. Overall, for the week on Monday, the markets were higher. We had a situation where there was a bit of momentum from the previous Friday, not the one that just passed, but the weekend before. And that was because of the new potential fiscal stimulus and several major corporate deals being struck. Tuesday, market was lower. Again, it's the coronavirus syndrome, right? Where the market goes up, we might have a cure, a vaccine. Then all of a sudden the next day, cases rise, we're going to lock down again, market comes back down. So that's the reason why that Tuesday the markets went down, due to the fact that, we've had a possible resurgence of the coronavirus. Wednesday and Thursday, market ended positive after the Congress, especially the Democrats in the House of Representatives, passed an additional stimulus package. Hopefully there's something that gets agreed between both sides to be able to help people that are out of a job, because the layoffs are coming. I'm going to tell you guys that in just a moment. Friday, the market ended lower after it was reported that President Trump got the COVID, as well as the First Lady, Melania Trump. And overall for the week, U.S. stocks were higher. Dow was up 1.87%. In 2020, so far, it's down 3%. S&P 500 is up 1.51%. For the year, it's up 3.64%, and the NASDAQ is up 1.47% for the week. And for the year, it's up an amazing 23.43%. In overseas market news, there's an index, a stock index called the MSCI Broadest Index. And what they do is they follow 50 nations and they basically turn it into an index. So think it's let's call it a gauge of kind of overall. Obviously, the stock market is one of the indicators of economic health, right? So if you take the 50 largest or 50 of the major indexes, stock indexes, economies around the world, you put them all together, then you have one number, and that kind of is a barometer of what the global economy is like, and especially more than anything, global markets. It lost 3.4% for September, which is the first time that it came out negative since March, and much, obviously, that has to do because of the coronavirus. Let's blame everything on the coronavirus. And in the third quarter, it was able to go up 7.7%. European markets overall for the week, Italy was the most positive out of all of them at 1.95%. The Merval in Argentina was the biggest winner in Latin America at 3.83%. They're still locked down, by the way. Africa and the Middle East, Nigeria is up 2.53%, most positive of all. And then in the Far East, the Sensex in India went up 3.49%. And in the Philippines, that market went up 2.75%. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency news, there's not a whole lot of news this week, but one of the things that I wanted to mention in regards to Bitcoin, outside of the fact that I did find a use for it, right? I'm not a Bitcoin is the new Jesus fanatic, right? I'm a little bit more of a realist. I've done videos on that as well, but I did find a use for it, let's say, and I could do a video on that if you guys want to hear that. The Bitcoin for the week, it went down 1.28% to about 10,541.90 cents, and the most important correlation for Bitcoin is the U.S. currency, due to the fact that the majority of the world is still on the U.S. currency. Over 60%, over 61, I should say, percent of the global reserves are in the U.S. currency as well. And so If the US dollar goes up, then the more likely scenario for Bitcoin is that it's going to go down, and vice versa. So that's one of the things, if you guys are trading it or want to invest in it, whatever you guys want to do, is something for you guys to definitely look at. In financial and banking news, the share of the reserve currencies for the USD, the dollar, slipped to 61.3% in quarter two compared to 61.9% in quarter one. A year ago was 61.3% of global reserves as well, so it's stayed about the same over the course of the last year, and it's still by far the major one that's used. And obviously with this whole situation with the quarantine, just like the crisis that we had in 2008 and 2009, the everybody rushes to the US dollar or the US economy because they think that's the safe one or the most secure, so to speak, right? So what ends up happening is the US dollar does get a bit stronger, but the way that I phrase it, it's that it's the least dirty shirt in the dirty closet, essentially, because at the end of the day, it's not really that good of a currency. Other than that, part of the reason why it's dropped a little bit, interest rates, the stimulus. If you guys, I'm not a party person. I'm not a big government person. I think that at the end of the day, bureaucracy and politics aren't good for anybody, right? So I think that if you really pay attention to what's happening overall, there's a situation where it doesn't matter if the right is in charge or the left is in charge. Notice that whenever they are in charge and they start telling us what we need to do, that really is the biggest problem, right? If you guys like these recaps, go ahead and like the video. It helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. I do these free for you guys every week. I'm going to start doing new videos as well. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave the hashtag Ask Marcello for all the questions. I'll be more than happy to go ahead and answer them as well. And don't forget to subscribe here. And if you guys want to listen to the podcast, just look up Day Trading Academy or my name, Marcello Arambide. You should be able to find it. In commodities, the U.S. Supreme Court, this is actually, I think, a bit of a big case. The U.S. Supreme Court is going to agree to hear an appeal from energy firms, BP, Chevron, ExxonMobil, and Shell, literally the largest oil and energy firms in the world. They're contesting a lawsuit that was brought in by the city of Baltimore seeking damages from global climate change. The suit is targeting 21 U.S. and foreign energy firms that extract, produce, and distribute or sell fossil fuels. So that's going to be very interesting. And that could be a landmark case because then everybody can sue these firms for damages. Crude oil has dropped 10% in the month of September. As oil finished mixed on Wednesday. Noble Energy shareholders They approved a $4.2 billion deal to sell themselves to the oil and gas provider Chevron. Chevron, if you guys don't know, it's one of the largest oil companies in the world. It's going to make them the second largest U.S. shale oil producer, and it's going to give it international natural gas reserves to close in on the world's growing markets. The U.S. crude for the week, it went down 8.63% to $37.05. Still down close to 40% for the year. However, international crude, which is called Brent, is down 6.74% for the week, and it's at about $39.27 dollars at the end of the week. And then for the year, it's down just over 41% for the year. The oil market overall is being affected primarily by two things. We have the situation with the resurgence in the coronavirus. So obviously, if the coronavirus is going to continue, things are going to continue to be locked down and the economy isn't going to recover. People aren't going to drive or fly. So the demand for oil isn't going to continue to go up. And then the other thing is the production from OPEC. So we have a situation where, OPEC is starting to produce a bit more, especially in countries like Libya, for example. So if there's less demand and more supply, that means that the pressure is going to be down for oil. Now that can change, right? Tomorrow they can find a cure for the COVID, and then obviously everybody can go back to normal, and then that's going to get demand again for oil. Trump signed an executive order aimed at expanding the domestic production of rare earth metals. It's vital to a lot of the critical manufacturing sectors in addition to the military. It's called the Defense Production Act, and it may be used to hasten the development of the mines. One of the things that I think any country, not only the U.S., is our medicine is made in China as well, and India. And when we had the situation with hydroxychloroquine, for example, people, India, for example, didn't want to ship it to the U.S. They wanted to use it for their own people. So the rare earth minerals, they're called rare earth minerals for a reason. They're more rare than, for example, oil and silver. they're pretty important, and we have them in the U.S., but China has a lock on the market because they're able to mine them because of this environmental, the environmental protection and things like that. Gold for the month was down 4.1%, the worst result since 2016. The prices are responding to a strengthening U.S. dollar, which has been weighing on commodity prices. If you guys don't know what commodities are, it's essentially oil and copper and rice. Most products in the world are priced in dollars, so whenever the dollar goes up, there's selling pressure in a lot of these commodities. Gold did have, however, an 8th straight quarterly gain, buoyed by safe haven demand by investors. Obviously, when things get really bad and people are scared, they always go to what they think is secure. That's why the dollar, for example, surged, especially in March and April during the coronavirus, even though that's changed a little bit, right? And then other things, obviously, are gold and silver as well. You guys can see on this channel, especially on the Day Trading Academy channel, I talked about gold and silver for 2, 3, 4 years ago. So now the prices are a lot higher. Before they were a lot lower. The time to buy is really not when things go up. It's really when things go down, essentially, right? Just like Warren Buffett says. He says, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. Precious metals for the week, gold was up 2.01%. It went to about $1,899, and silver's up 3.4% to $23.79. In political news on Wednesday, U.S. House Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin sounded more optimistic about possibly having a deal for the new stimulus. Obviously, there's a bit of a deadlock in Congress because the Democrats want a $2.2 trillion stimulus, while the Republicans want a little bit lower amount, and obviously they're fighting about the details. U.S. Vice President Pence and also Second Lady Karen Pence, which is the wife of Mike Pence, have tested negative for the coronavirus on Friday. The Czech Republic has begun voting on Friday as well for their representatives on a regional level. And also we have a situation where New Zealand, we have a situation on Friday where Prime Minister Labour Party leader Jacinda Ardern is likely to secure a second term in office after a, quote, successful handling of the coronavirus pandemic and other crises as well. In economic news, the leadership in China is going to endorse lower growth for the target that they have for the next 5 years. They're looking at between 5 to 5.5% compared to a target of 6.5% between 2016 to 2020, as officials now are starting to incur a lot more challenges. For example, the trade deals with the U.S., and also now there's a lot of other countries that aren't very happy with China, because if you guys remember during the coronavirus, they literally closed off their whole country so you could fly from where the virus is from, in Wuhan. You can fly from Wuhan to anywhere internationally, but you couldn't fly within China. Other than that, we have a situation where the economic analysts are expecting China to grow just 2 to 3% in 2020, which is the weakest level since 1976. It could rebound, however, to up to 7% in 2021, but the longer-term trend is that they're going to have slower growth as the population continues to age, the economy becomes more mature, and also because of the trade developments. We have a lot more countries now as well that are starting to remove. They need jobs, right? So essentially, China is the maker of everything in the world. So if countries like the U.S. and Europe, if they move all the manufacturing out of China, and it's made in Belarus, or it's made in in other countries like Vietnam, for example, then there's going to be a lot of jobs that aren't in China anymore. U.S. private employers are increasing hiring in September by 749,000 when it was forecasted at just 650,000. Obviously, we're going to have a situation where if we don't have an agreement for the stimulus, and that could change in the future as well, because it's going to start to expire. In addition to that, Americans filing new jobless claims fell last week to a 6-month low. So we do have some good news in regards to the economy in the U.S. It did in September as well. We gained 661,000 jobs, even though the expectation was going to be 800,000. The unemployment right now has dropped to 7.9% in September. The pandemic high was 14.7%, and it's a 5th consecutive month that we've had job gains in the U.S., which is actually great. Now, the only problem is that Yelp, for example, reported that 60% of the businesses that close temporarily are going to close permanently. And then we also have reports in other places like New York City, for example, that up to 70 or 80% of the jobs there and even businesses are not coming back. Other than that, the U.S. economy did suffer its sharpest contraction in 73 years in quarter two. It plunged 31.4% on an annualized rate. Obviously, blame the coronavirus. Large decline in output as well since they started keeping records since 1947. But obviously now they're expecting a really huge comeback. Not as big as the contraction, but now in the quarter three we should have big numbers as well. Canadian economy expanded in July and August. July was 3%. August was 1% as well. They're starting to come back somewhat as well, even though they're a little bit more locked down than the U.S. And the EU unemployment rate rose for the fifth straight month in August to 8.1% from 7.9%. Obviously, again, coronavirus. 13.2 million people remain jobless in the EU. Corporate news, United Airlines is announcing that the pilots have voted to approve a deal that's going to avoid about 2,850 furloughs. That's going to be later this week. That would have been later this week. They're also announcing very big, let me scroll down here and let you guys know. They're announcing huge layoffs of 32,000 people. United is going to be 13,000, and then American is going to be 19,000. So layoffs are coming if there's no stimulus. Other than that, on Thursday, German company Bayer, which is the chemical and pharmaceutical firm, their shares fell by 10% due to the fact that their expectation of earnings in 2021 is going to be slightly below what they had before. Thursday, Rolls-Royce. You guys know the Rolls-Royce fancy cars. They actually make jet engines as well. Due to the fact that people aren't buying planes anymore because nobody's flying, they are going to be issuing $2 billion in shares at a 41% discount on Wednesday's close. And obviously, they need a little bit of help too financially. Trade news, there's been reports that the EU and the UK have said that they're still way off when it comes to a deal. The negotiations have been stumbling between the border issue in Northern Ireland in addition to some trade disputes, things like fisheries and fair competition. And on Monday, China's ambassador to the World Trade Organization said a panel ruling said that the tariffs that the Trump administration placed on China were 100% fair and objective. So that's good news. I don't know if you guys noticed, but now we have the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization. The New World Order is coming. I hope you're preparing yourself. In technology, Google is shifting out of the super expensive smartphone business. They're going to start trying to sell their Pixel line of phones at a little bit lower price point. So they're going to have a $400 phone, a $500 phone, as well as a $700 phone instead of the $1,000 and $2,000 phones that Samsung and Apple make, for example. Apple sucks, by the way. Investment news, U.S.-based Devon Energy and WPX, they are moving forward for a merger that they're going to do. The stocks are up 11.1% and also 16.4% respectively. The results of the combined entity is about $12 billion. Disney theme parks are shut down globally, and the company's profit dropped about 91% in quarter one. They are also laying off 28,000 people, and 67% of the employees that have already been laid off are going to be part-time workers as well. So you guys can see we have a lot of big companies now that are reporting a lot of layoffs. So if we don't have a stimulus or a recovery, then it's going to be a problem. So whoever you believe in for the election, make sure you vote for somebody that's going to create jobs, whoever that is. Palantir shares went up 31% on its first day of trading. It's a big data analytics company. It has a valuation of about $22 billion. There was huge trading volume of just over 335 million shares. The firm actually started about 15 years ago with the help of CIA seed money. The U.S. National Association of Realtors, the index pending home sales rose 8.8% in August versus July, hitting a new all-time high. It's the fourth consecutive month which the level of Americans signing contracts to purchase homes has risen. Compared to 2019, the contracts were up 24%. Now, I do believe we're walking into a home collapse, but I don't think it's going to be a complete home collapse, so to speak. There's going to be some opportunities in some markets. I've been in real estate since about 2008 or so, even though I don't talk about it much here on video. But if you guys want me to do a video on that, let me know, and I'll share it. UK billionaire Aesop Brothers and private equity group TDR Capital, which is Britain's third largest supermarket chain, Asda, was purchased from Walmart. It gives the deal, the British supermarket chain, an enterprise value of about $8.8 billion, and the buyers are going to start to roll out smaller stores. An international events German government coordinator for relations with the U.S. and Canada, Peter Bayer, is saying that Europe and the U.S. need to face the reality that there's going to be a new Cold War with China. It's going to continue no matter who gets elected for the presidency in the U.S. in November. He insisted that there were more shared interests than differences between them. And there's a bit of a mini war, let's say, scuttles, I think is a word in English, fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan escalated quite a bit. Now, this is localized in the country. If you guys look at a map, I recommend you do so if you guys are interested in the subject. But essentially, the reason why all of this started, it's not so recent, right? It goes back many, many years. Armenia is essentially a Christian country, whereas Azerbaijan essentially is a Muslim country. So that essentially is the where kind of this dispute started. Armenia essentially never wanted to convert. Now the problem is that Russia supports Armenia because Russia is a Christian nation, and Turkey supports Azerbaijan because Turkey is mostly a Muslim country. So if for some reason Russia and Turkey actually get involved, this is spiral out of control quite a bit, but for now it's been localized within the region. About 30 people a day have been killed in the second day of heavy clashes. Germany's foreign minister Heiko Maas is calling for new EU sanctions against Russia over the poisoning of the leader, if you guys remember, Alexei Navalny, with a banned nerve agent. So that's how Putin rolls, so be careful when you go to Russia. I went during the World Cup. Amazing. India's death rate for the coronavirus, unfortunately, has passed the 100,000 people mark. It's joining the countries of Brazil and the United States as the only countries to have that amount of deaths, not cases, deaths. One thing I want you to notice about the coronavirus is when they report it, they always talk about the cases. They never talk about the deaths, right? And why is that? Because the deaths really aren't that high. Other than that, Paraguay's Congress declared a national emergency on Thursday as forest fires raged in the burning swaths of the Chaco dry forest. Sprawling cattle ranchers, jaguars, and many indigenous tribes are affected, and even the neighbors of Argentina, Bolivia, and Brazil are struggling to contain the fires. And an unusual fact this week, guess what? The bread at Subway can't be called bread because it has so much sugar in it. So for those of you guys that want to eat the meat that's been reported to cause cancer by the WHO, you're going to go and have a cancer sandwich with some cake bread. According to a Supreme Court ruling in Ireland, there was a suit that was brought by one of the licensees of the Subway brand saying that they should have gotten a tax refund due to the fact that Subway, the bread that they use, is a staple. Well, they said that it doesn't meet the staple because it shouldn't have more than 2% of the pound of the flour as sugar, and they actually have 10%. So if you're going to go pretending to think that you're going to eat some healthy food at Subway, you're going to go eat meat that causes cancer and also some cake bread because it's not really bread. So go somewhere else like Chipotle. Other than that, long-delayed food barrier systems successfully protected Venice from the high tide for the first time on Saturday. Multi-billion euro flood protection called MOSE, due to come in service in 2011, was overrun by corruption and cost overruns, as everything does in Italy, but it finally was able to protect the city. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to like the video. Leave all the questions that you guys have with #AskMarcello. And don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next week.